This is the Atem Mini, a $300 HDMI video switcher used for online presentations, live productions, or just your over-the-top Zoom meetings. Let's get into it. In this video, we're talking about HDMI video switchers. We're not talking about the ones where you hook up your TV because you've run out of HDMI inputs. These are HDMI switchers made for online or live productions. Traditionally, these have been very expensive, and we're talking about somewhere in the price range of $2,000 to $3,000 on the low end. These come from brands like Blackmagic or Roland. Towards the end of 2019, Blackmagic announced the Atem Mini. They made a big splash with this announcement for a number of reasons. The main reason was the price. This is a $300 4-input video switcher. On top of that, it's able to handle most HDMI signals that you give it, meaning you don't have to match the frame rates and resolutions like you do a lot of times, even on the most expensive switchers. These started shipping out in November of 2019, and shortly after that, the pandemic happened, and of course, there was a shortage of every kind of capture device. This is really a video capture device with 4 inputs for your computer. I initially purchased this 2 other times, each time returning it, but eventually I kept this one. At first, I didn't really know if I needed it or not. Eventually, I found use cases for it, and it has really become a great addition to my streaming and video production setup. In this video, I'm not going to go into too much detail on the technical specs of it, and there are plenty of videos and tutorials out there on how to use these things. Also, this is the original base model of the Atem Mini. There's the Atem Mini Pro, Pro ISO, and Blackmagic just released the Atem Mini Extreme and Extreme ISO, which can take up to 8 inputs and has a lot of cool capabilities. Here we're talking about the base model. Why? Because it's the cheapest at $300, and it's going to be overkill for most people. I'll admit, this is already overkill for me, and the Pro comes in at $600, the Pro ISO at $900, the Extreme starts at $1,000, and the Extreme ISO is about $1,300. When it comes to the Atem Mini, you have 4 HDMI inputs here. These 4 inputs don't have to come from a camera. They can come from a computer, an iPad, or anything that just has an HDMI output. In my case, I've used the camera, a computer, my iPad, and even a Chromecast as well. You can hook up even an Apple TV, a Roku box, or even your PlayStation. So what are some use cases for the Atem Mini? First, I would say presentations of all kind. If you're at a conference presenting a certain subject, or if you're a teacher teaching every day. Of course, using this can be overwhelming, and there's a learning curve to it, especially with most of us not being production managers. I do this as a hobby, and I've had a lot of practice using this. This channel is everyday tech, and is meant for everyday people, but even something like this can be very valuable. It shouldn't be intimidating as well. I'll admit, this is definitely overkill for what I do, but since the pandemic, I started thinking of things in different ways as far as technology is concerned and how it can really make our lives easier, especially in the Zoom world we're living in. This does require an investment, and I would say yes, very much overkill. For a presentation, I'm able to do things that can differentiate me from other presentations. First, camera angles. This is a video switcher, so I have more than one video camera hooked into this. I can change the different angles if I want to. So for example, I have my GoPro here, and I can switch to it with just one press of a button. There are a few reasons to do this. This really changes things up for a viewer, depending on the type of presentations you are doing. If I want to show a product of something on my desk here, I can have a camera mounted above. And if I want to do behind the scenes like I'm doing here of a virtual event, I can just mount my camera and do it to the side and show you a behind the scenes, especially with having this GoPro with such a wide angle view. The other thing you can do is feed other sources of video other than another camera, such as another computer or tablet. In my case, I have my iPad here hooked up, and I have a Chromecast set up in another input. So have you been in a presentation where someone is sharing their screen, and there's a little bit of a disconnect that can happen when doing that? But let's say I'm sharing my presentation slides and I can seamlessly switch back and forth with my slides and myself. I can even do a picture-in-picture effect. If you really want to get fancy, you can even use a green screen, but I don't have one here to demonstrate. The last thing I'll talk about is concerning live events, particularly putting live events on Zoom or online. I've been able to help out with 2 weddings, and because I had the Atem Mini, I was able to do a number of things. First, ability to switch camera angles is so nice for the viewers watching online. The first virtual wedding I went to, it was done with someone using their cell phone. And it was a cell phone on a tripod, but still, it was just a cell phone. And for most of the wedding, the camera was stationary and pointed at one direction. Then there's the issue with audio. Okay, audio is a different story. The Atem Mini doesn't have a magical microphone. You still need to have that equipment, but the Atem Mini does have tools built in for audio to feed in, let's say, a mixer from the venue. With the 2 weddings that I did, I had 2 cameras with 2 different angles. So I was able to give the viewers different perspectives of the wedding. The last wedding I did, I had my iPad hooked up as well as a third input. So before the wedding and a short time period between the ceremony and the reception, I was able to play a slideshow of the couple through the iPad. After the ceremony of both weddings, I had the couples come over to my computer where I had another camera set up where they could say hi to their virtual attendees as well. There are just so many things that you can do with this little thing. I've only touched on some basics here. Remember, this is just one of many tools and ways to do things. It all depends on your needs and what tools you already have. Costs can really start to add up. You'll need a camera that can do HDMI output. This solution is not very practical with just a normal webcam. So there are alternative ways to do this camera switching and different scenes using software as well. In a future video, I'm going to go over some of those tools, such as OBS or Ecamm on a Mac. Hopefully this video will be somewhat obsolete and we can get back to some normalcy. But I have a feeling that even when we do start to have these bigger in-person gatherings, there will still be an online component to those, whether it'll be all virtual events or a hybrid model. I hope you found this video somewhat helpful or informative. If you did, give it a like and consider subscribing. Until the next one, see ya.